Miracles are the dream's alternative, the choice to be the dreamer rather than deny the active role in making up the dream. The mind acknowledges, this is not done to me, but I am doing this. And thus the mind is free to make another choice instead. This is Alison Anton. You're listening to the ForgiveNest Podcast for A Course in Miracles, your place to explore ACIM topics in meditation, healing, and your special function in forgiveness. This episode is a very quick rundown of why the ego, according to A Course in Miracles, cannot let you know that you are its maker, and why it needs to keep you in amnesia about the role you play as the director of this dream you've made. Some foreshadowing here. The reason the ego is trying to erase you as its maker is the very same reason why you are trying to erase your own creator too. We'll get to that. And it may sound like I'm pointing the finger at you specifically, but please know I'm including myself and all of us in this conversation. I'm using the word you specifically because we're highlighting that word today. Namely, who is you? This is an extremely challenging topic to understand, and that's because multiple levels of our mind are working really hard not to understand it. The deflective nature of the ego is one of those very perplexing things about our psyche that we may not fully understand until a very late stage in our spiritual development. We don't need to understand every little nuance of the game our made-up self plays, but there is considerable focus on it in the Course because we absolutely do need to recognize our own involvement in this game. And in doing so, it places power where the power belongs, in our own hands. It's scary sometimes, and sometimes angering, and sometimes deeply depressing, frankly, to look closely at this part of our psyche. But we have to, because only then do we recognize there's an alternative to this strange amnesia we're in. Just like we were the ones who chose it in the first place, we are the ones who can choose another way instead. The mind acknowledges this is not done to me, but I am doing this. And thus the mind is free to make another choice instead. Firstly, it's a good idea to give a quick refresher on who is the you that the ego is trying to scrub out of the picture. And then, of course, we need a super quick refresher of what the ego is, too. Notice I say who in reference to you and what in reference to the ego. You are a who and the ego is a what, meaning you are a mind or a being and the ego is an it or a thing. You are not the ego and you are not the body. The you we're talking about here, and the you that Jesus from A Course in Miracles is primarily talking to, is the dreaming self, or the mind of you that is asleep making up an illusion. Jesus in A Course in Miracles calls this dreaming self the sleeping Son of God. We're sleeping because we made an error of mistaken identity. Trying to split off our mind from the mind of God, trying to leave behind our true identity as God's creation. The only way to do this is by dreaming it. And this is why Jesus calls us the sleeping Son of God. The error of mistaken identity in our dream took root when we miscreated by making a false identity that Jesus calls the ego. The ego is an avatar, so to speak. With so much happening with AI now, I'm starting to like to think of the ego as AI. It's not a being in itself, but more of a programmed thought system made by us. Ironically or not, Just as we today fear that AI will turn on us at some point, the ego did exactly that. Just like we chose to snuff out God and dissociate ourselves by placing our identity into an ego self, the ego snuffed us out too. One of the ways it did this was by projecting the false identity onto bodies and the world. With us as the dreamer snuffed out, and our true identity snuffed out, and even God snuffed out, what started out as one mistake became a compounded, multi-leveled schizophrenia of the soul. We not only don't remember what happened, we don't remember we're dreaming, we don't remember ourselves as the dreamers, and we don't remember God. This is where we start to see just how ingenious our minds are. Not only is this world and our bodies and the entire universe an epic dreamscape, the way we keep the dream going is just as epic in itself. The dream really started because we wanted something, and the dream keeps showing us that original want. The Course says, a dream is like a memory in that it pictures what you wanted shown to you. What the Course encourages us to admit is that we wanted to deny that God was our creator. That's where our dream started. Jesus says, the separation started with the dream the Father was deprived of his effects. God's effects are us as his creation, and powerless to keep them since he was no longer their creator. In this dream process of denying God as our creator, we turn and try to forget him entirely, because if we were to look at the situation, at God head on, we're terrified. Not because God is terrifying, but because we feel tremendous guilt internally and we fear great punishment for that guilt. We're only punishing ourselves, though, but we project that onto God. The storyline in our dream now becomes that there are only two options: to turn and face a vengeful God to be punished for what we did, or to keep going the other way and dissociate further and further. We chose the latter, but unfortunately, we could only sweep the guilt and fear under a rug, only to be consumed by it in every single thing that came forward from here on out. Because we turned against our creator in our minds, all things we make in the dream seem to turn against us as well. Here's what he says next. In the dream, the dreamer made himself, but what he made had turned against him, taking on the role of its creator as the dreamer had. So because the dream is a projection, we dumped our fear and guilt onto this ego persona we made. In turn, it saw us as able to attack it, just like we thought we could attack God. Because it's so deeply fearful of who we are and what we can do to it, the ego tries desperately to snuff out the dreamer, just like the dreamer tried to snuff out God. From here, the world and bodies were made as part of the dream. And you can see where this goes. Because of our original projection of guilt and fear and attack on God, all consecutive projections are based in that very foundation, which means all figures in the dream see only attack. The self turns against the self, bodies turn against bodies. And as he hated his creator, so the figures in the dream have hated him. His body is their slave, which they abuse because the motives he has given it have they adopted as their own, and hate it for the vengeance it would offer them. The figures in the dream he's referring to are our bodies and the world. All figures have lost sight of the real dreamer, not knowing this is a dream and not knowing we're the dreamer. Displacing guilt onto others is all we seem to be able to do here. Everybody else is guilty, and the dreamer has essentially been canceled out of the equation. Jesus says in chapter 27, "This is how all illusions come about. The one who makes them does not see himself as making them, and their reality does not depend on him. Whatever cause they have is something quite apart from him, and what he sees is separate from his mind. He cannot doubt his dreams' reality because he does not see the part he plays in making them and making them seem real." So we can see here how this can just keep going and going through time like an endless game of ping pong. It's an ingenious way to make us believe that what's happening to us must be caused by something or someone else outside of us. This is why we all feel like victims or potential victims of something that could happen later. We've eliminated ourselves as the maker of the dream and placed guilt on everyone else. It's their vengeance on the body which appears to prove the dreamer could not be the maker of the dream. Fortunately, this is the separation's final step, and then we start the process of rewinding all the way back to God. From here, our choice must be to both recognize we are the dreamer and that it's only a dream, which means our error of separation had no real effects on God or us at all. This can take a long time, but the Course states so often that it doesn't have to. And we have an alternative to the psychosis we made readily at hand. It is not difficult to shift a dream when once the dreamer has been recognized. So we've been talking here about the problem of projecting a false identity and really nothing about the solution. A Course in Miracles is in no way about presenting the problem without the solution. It's important that once we do have some sense of these concepts, we carry forward with the solution. That's one of the reasons to read the Course text first, to really have a foundational understanding of the dream we made. And then we can move into the workbook to put into practice the solutions offered. In general, though, our corrective instruction always starts with, "Know this is fear." Or in other words, "Know this is a dream." We then take accountability for it. I'm choosing this fear myself over love. Then we ask for help in correcting the real error in our mind. And the final step is extending forgiveness and recognizing the perfect worth in everyone. I'm going to end with a long passage near the very end of the Course text. I tried to break it up and stop somewhere in the middle, but the full passage really is the sure way to capture what Jesus is saying here about our process of trying to usurp God and in getting lost in a futile journey inside a dream. Let's really listen to this. So if at all possible, if you can, please close your eyes and take this in as if Jesus is talking directly to you. The you that's dreaming the dream right now. There is no road that leads away from God. A journey from yourself does not exist. How foolish and insane it is to think that there could be a road with such an aim. Where could it go? And how could you be made to travel on it, walking there without your own reality at one with you? Forgive yourself your madness and forget all senseless journeys and all goalless aims. They have no meaning. You cannot escape from what you are, for God is merciful, and he did not let his son abandon him. For what he is, be thankful, for in that is your escape from madness and from death. Nowhere but where he is can you, the real you, be found. There is no path that does not lead to him. And I'll leave you with that to ponder. Thanks for listening to the ForgiveNest Podcast for A Course in Miracles. I'm Alison Anton. It was great talking to you.